No sooner did we enter into a brand new week than the next Trinidad and Tobago Bacchanal flavor of the week present itself bright and early on God's Monday morning. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, you know the guy who's supposed to be running the country? Yeah, him. He stood up in front of everyone and in his usual way didn't discuss it with us. He informed the population that he and his administration are changing the coat of arms. So there's differing schools of thought on this. My TLDR on this is that don't touch it. Not at this time anyway. Not unless you give it the due thought and consideration and, in my opinion, the necessary public consultation that something of this magnitude requires, particularly since the offending 3 ships on the coat of arms is incredibly significant for our nation's history. But it's also because we have other things to think about. But we don't think the same way as this administration. They're thinking about the fact that in 2025, the general elections are slated to happen. So in August of next year, we're a year away, and that time is going to go by very quickly. So their MO for the next year is going to spend as much money as they can and ensure it happens whether or not the rules are followed. This is all alleged. This is an opinion. Okay, a lot of people are going to disagree with me. A lot of people are going to agree with me. I have been working in procurement forever. I've been working in the public sector for 1 year shy of half my life, and my career in procurement is not too far behind. So I'm going to come at this from a procurement perspective. And trust me, I smell a backroom deal. This is a backroom deal if I ever saw one. Let's talk about the procurement implications of something like changing the coat of arms. Changing the coat of arms means changing everything else under the sun. It is a matter of public interest, and it is going to have a significant impact on day-to-day operations for the Trinidad and Tobago Public Service. It's even going to carry into the public sector if any public sector organizations are allowed to print the coat of arms on anything that they produce on behalf of the government. So a lot of suppliers. Something of this magnitude needs to be done, and needs to be done quickly. And there's a lot of money attached to it. And given the magnitude and the fact that it is such a huge matter of public interest, I am inclined to believe that someone's going to make a case, at the very least, for a limited tendering opportunity. And I just flat out would not be surprised if there were some sort of sole source arising out of this. And if you look at the rationale under sole source, even though something like this technically shouldn't be a sole source, given the timing and the urgency for when this is carried out, they're going to make a timing argument. And they're going to make an argument about national security, anything that is deemed an exception under the Procurement Act. Not only that, do you remember that recently the Simplified Procurement Act came into play? Now, I'm not saying that the procurements under this particular initiative would fall under the criteria for simplified procurement. That is, unless you're splitting the procurements, which technically you really shouldn't be doing. But again, it depends on how they decide to roll this thing out. So there's a couple of different aspects to this. Some things they're going to ram through because timing to general elections, ensuring that they have access to the money for this initiative before the elections. But at the same time, they want to control the process as much as possible and not draw too much attention to it because there's lots of eyes on this, right? somebody's going to file an FOIA request. The OPR is going to be looking. So it's in their best interest to split these procurements as much as possible. And also, again, back to the timing issue, Keith Rowley was saying that this is going to be done for around the time of Republic Day. So let me just clarify something for you. As someone who has worked in public sector procurement for a long time, he's not informing you that it's going to be done. Keith Rowley is informing you that it's already been done. Because when it comes to public sector procurement, we don't really issue things, and announcements in particular, to the market, especially for things that are potentially highly contentious, political in nature, high visibility, things that the public would push back on, and there'd be a lot of chatter around it. We don't really say things in the very beginning, or the messaging is highly controlled. So when something like this happens, and given the timeline to Republic Day, it's done. It's a done deal. They already have someone in mind to carry out the work. This has been in the works for some time, and I think that this was a very calculated move on the Prime Minister's part and those who are applicable in his administration to carry this out. So they've selected vendors already, or vendors, a vendor or vendors, and somebody's already designed it. The work is already done, and there's a lot of money flowing already. So at the end of the day, I don't really think that the Prime Minister cares whether or not there's a steel pan on the coat of arms or not. Remember, the steel pan was only recently declared the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. So why the urgency to put it up on the coat of arms right now? What is happening is, again, last-ditch efforts before the general election. Now, a lot of people are thinking that the PNM is going to win, given the weakness that the opposition demonstrates. But what if somehow the PNM does not take the majority in the government, and it's the UNC or otherwise? They need to make sure the money is squared away before the next administration comes in. So if they win, they can do what they will. Remember that report that the respected economist Marla Dukaran highlighted recently about the fact that billions of dollars have disappeared without a trace? Yeah, they want this to happen. They don't want there to be a trace. Or the other side of it is that they're going to use this as ammunition to belittle the opposition if they don't take a majority next year. So either way, and as per usual, the only one that wins out of all of this is the current administration, and Joe Public be damned. We're the ones that lose, because nobody thought to ask us what we think. Nobody thought to ask us what's important to us. Nobody's sitting there and saying, okay, instead of removing all 3 ships, why don't we take away a couple? Put one of the Tasa drums up there. Put the Fatil Razak up there. If the ships are so contentious, why don't we include everybody and really demonstrate a fulsome coat of arms that truly affects everybody? Nobody asks that. Nobody thinks of that, because at the end of the day, this administration has long called us and will continue to call us nothing more than the equivalent of the intended derogatory remark that they made in Parliament. You'll remember this one. We're nothing more than pumpkin and bhaji farmers to these people.